Hello, good afternoon, wonderful people. I hope you are doing great. Today, we're going to be discussing something interesting. Again, it's all about U.S. immigration law, Title 42. My name is Attorney AK, founder and principal attorney at AK Poku Law, U.S. immigration law firm where we represent immigrants in all 50 states throughout the United States and all around the world. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing my screen with you, and let's get into the discussion. So, as you guys know, March 20th, 2020, due to COVID, Title 42 was implemented. Okay, it was implemented at the border. So, that's what we're going to be looking at, what it is, what it means, um, when it's going to be eliminated, and just everything about Title 42 in this video. So the US has long guaranteed the right to seek asylum to individuals who arrive at our southern border and ask for protection, right? They do this through, asylum. If you have fear of persecution, or you have been persecuted in the past and you have a fear of that, you can come to the US or to any other country and then seek asylum. You come to the border, and then if you're let in, you can seek asylum. Okay. So since March 2020, that was the onset of COVID. That fundamental right has been largely suspended. This was implemented by former President Trump. And since that date, both migrants seeking a better life in the US and those seeking to apply for asylum have been turned away and expelled back to Mexico, or their home countries. Okay. So what is Title 42? This expulsion we've been talking about, where people are being turned away from the southern border, is due to a provision of U.S. health law, that's section 265 of Title 42. And pretty much we will go into what the law specifically states, where there's prohibition of people coming into the country, into the US, where there's fear that they're going to spread some contagious disease. I'll look at the exact wording and we'll talk about it very soon. So the DHS has been using Title 42 to expel single adults and families who are encountered at the southern border. Okay, so that's what has been happening since then. And Title 42 has been in full force and it's going to be, eliminated from May 23rd, 2022. So again, we're likely going to see an increase in the number of people, an influx in migration. The number of people who are going to roll in from the southern border is going to be a lot. There's just going to be a lot of people. They are estimating about 70,000 people every day, or roughly under 20,000 people every day. The normal average is about 7,000 people every day. And again, getting when the weather is getting warmer, like in spring, summer, there's always an increase in the number of migrants who are trying to come into the US. Everybody's wanting to come and live the American dream, right? Okay, so let's get back into it. So these border expulsions, okay, we've talked about that. So the Biden administration also continued under the provision, the Title 42. People were expecting the Biden administration to do away with it, but they did not. And since the beginning of the pandemic, over 1.2 million people have been expelled from the United States. And although, these people are being expelled from the southern border, the airports are open. These ports of entry, such as the airports, people are crossing and flying into the US every day. So people wonder, okay, are you just trying to prevent people from seeking asylum, or you are really trying to prevent coronavirus from spreading? So that question is going to be answered soon. Hold on, let me scroll down a little bit more and then let's continue. Okay. Okay, so CDC, that's the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, they claim that this order, the Title 42 order, was to protect the US from a public health perspective. And so they're saying that well, some people are still saying that no, this is likely untrue, and that the policy actually came from the DHS and Trump, his White House, just as a way to prevent people from coming into the country, just to control the borders, because it's something that has been a long-standing controversy, trying to control the southern border and prevent so many people from coming into the US. Okay, so ever since then, public health experts outside the CDC, they've continued to argue that while the international borders at the airports remain largely open to other travelers, there's no need to turn away refugees and expel them to their home countries or Mexico. There are some people that are saying, again, CDC scientists are saying that there's no public health rationale to support the Title 42. Okay. And you must note that Title 42 actually violates international law, which prohibits against refoulement. Refoulement forbids any country who's receiving asylum seekers from returning them to a country in which they will be persecuted. People are coming in saying that they fear persecution, and then you're turning them right back into the danger which they fear. Again, the Title 42 is against the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. There's due process. The right, we have a right to. Everybody has a right to due process, so far as they are in the United States. Okay, so those are the laws that are against Title 42. Okay, so since taking office, the Biden administration has continued to insist that Title 42 is necessary for public health purposes, despite the availability of, there's a lot of tests, there's vaccination for COVID, but they're still insisting that it's to protect the US from an outbreak of COVID. So multiple federal judges have also ruled that the law does not permit expulsions. Okay, so the law against the Title 42, how it's being viewed is that it's illegal because you cannot turn people away when they've already entered the United States. If they are not yet in the United States, sure, you can turn them away. But once they enter and they're within the jurisdiction, then they have the right to due process. And they need to go through the court system or the proper asylum system in order to seek the protection that they deserve. Okay, let's continue. Decisions blocking. Okay, we'll talk about the fact that unaccompanied minors were made an exception, and so those people were not being turned away. Okay, decisions blocking the use of Title 42 against unaccompanied children are currently on appeal. Okay, this was some years back. It was actually implemented. Unaccompanied children were accepted from the Title 42 provision. So now let's talk about what is Title 42 and how did it go into place. Okay, so as I stated, March 2020, DHS, the Department of Health, Human Services, HHS, they issued an emergency regulation to implement a specific aspect of U.S. law, that's Title 42, and this is the exact wording of the Title 42. It's to prohibit the introduction into the United States of individuals when the director of CDC believes that there's serious danger of the introduction of a communicable disease into the United States. So the rule allows any customs officers, of course, which includes the CBP officers, to implement any such order issued by the CDC. Okay. Okay, so the order targets individuals who have specifically entered the US from Canada or Mexico and who would be introduced into a congregate setting at a port of entry or in a border patrol situation. As you guys know, once you arrive at the southern border, there are lots of people are crowded, they're waiting to come into the US. And so there's a lot of contact, and there's a lot of people are very just really bundled up together. And so there's a fear, according to the CDC, that coronavirus could be transmitted very easily under those circumstances. So this includes individuals who would normally be detained by CBP after arriving at the border, including asylum seekers, unaccompanied children, and people attempting to enter the US without inspection. Sometimes also when people enter the US through the border, they are detained while their papers are being processed. And so during that time, again, there's close physical contact, and there's just a lot of people, that more people than the resources at the borders can handle. Okay, those detention centers, we've been seeing videos of people at the detention centers, and it's quite disturbing. So let's move on. So the CDC order, again, exempted. It doesn't apply to U.S. citizens. Number one, doesn't apply to lawful permanent residents. Number two, it does not apply to their spouses and children, nor does it apply to U.S. military personnel or those who arrive at a port of entry with valid travel documents. So valid travel documents would be B1 visa, B2 visa, whatever type of visa you're coming in with, you have permission to be in the United States. So this, although CDC maintains that it has authority to expel U.S. citizens under Title 42 if it chooses, but pretty much Title 42 applies to people who do not have travel documents and who do not have authority to be in the United States. Okay. The rule also includes an exemption of anyone, for anyone that DHS determines should be allowed to enter into the U.S. So, for example, if you're coming in by reason of you have a humanitarian parole grant, for humanitarian reasons, public health interests, in consideration of significant law enforcement officer or public safety, then you'll be allowed it. So these people, or people who are coming in under these reasons or because of these reasons, humanitarian or public health interest, they are exempted from Title 42. Yes, so Title 42 has since been modified since its implementation. So February 2nd, 2021, now unaccompanied children, from that time, unaccompanied children have been exempted, okay, from being expelled at the southern border. And that's the problem, because these people are going to be, well, they're already separated from their families, they're unaccompanied, and so they're allowed into the U.S. Okay, so how has Title 42 been implemented at the border? Under an agreement reached with the Mexican government late March 2020, so the Border Patrol, CBP, they were expelling people and sending most Mexican, Guatemalan, Honduran, Salvadoran families and single adults to Mexico. So despite this agreement, there's been extensive documentation of individuals expelled to Mexico who do not fit within this category, including Haitian asylum seekers. So people who are expelled, normally what happens is that they'll drive them by bus to the nearest port of entry, and then they are told to walk back to Mexico, normally often without their without their bags. Okay. Okay. So the Mexican state of Tamaulipas, and that borders South Texas. Since last year, January 2021, they've barred CBP from expelling families with children under the age of 7. It's to make all of this humane, because these children will be screaming, crying. It's a lot of risk also for the Mexicans, because they now need to care for these children, house them, and help them to go back to their countries if they're not able to house them, or give them some sort of housing until they're able to come back into the US. It's either you're coming into the US or you're leaving back to your country. So in response, CBP, they've carried out lateral transfers by plane or bus to other locations along the border, such as El Paso, where Mexican authorities allow the agency to expel families with young children. So they developed a different strategy. So if Tamaulipas is not allowing it, then they'll send them lateral. So these are known as lateral transfers. CBP will now bus these people to El Paso, because with that one, El Paso border is allowing, the state of El Paso in Mexico is allowing families with young children to be expelled from the US. Okay. So, however, because the capacity to carry out these lateral flights is limited, CBP has been forced to release the majority of families who cross the border in South Texas, despite President Biden's insistence that he would expel all families if he could. Okay. So because lateral flights are limited, they are releasing these families in the southern border, in South Texas. And then they are being allowed to come into the US. So those who are subject to Title 42, they are not given any opportunity to contest their expulsion on the grounds that they would face persecution in the country in which they would be expelled. So these people are not being allowed to seek asylum. And there's extraordinary limited exception to Title 42 for people who spontaneously inform CBP that they fear being tortured, and then CBP will take them through the gamut. Your claim has to be reasonably believable. If you're claiming that flying witches are chasing you, that's not reasonably believable. But if you're able to claim that, for example, political asylum, the government in your home country, they're chasing you because of your activism, and you can prove it some way, somehow, or whatever, and it's believable, then they will allow you to, if your story is reasonably believable, then they'll allow you to come in to actually prove your claim through the asylum process. So those subject to Title 42 who aren't sent to Mexico, they're held in ICE detention, and they're flown back into their home countries without any opportunity to seek asylum. Yeah, we know about Haiti. There was, I believe their president must have been assassinated. So there was unrest in Haiti, and so we had a lot of Haitians coming in to seek asylum. Because there was unrest in the country, and these people are being turned away. So, yeah, these people are being turned away. So, thousands of Haitian families who were seeking asylum have been subjected to this process, and they summarily returned to Haiti. And then, flights to Haiti were briefly suspended after people started making noise that no, President Joe Biden should take a look at this inhumane treatment being meted out to Haitians. Okay, so individuals who are expelled, they don't receive an order of deportation. Okay, if you receive an order of deportation, then that's on your immigration history, and of course, it usually has some consequences. But now CBP is just simply collecting biometrics of these people and recording their contacts with the agency, and they're not sure how they're going to be. Nobody knows how they're going to use this in the future, how it will impact a person's ability to, adjust their status or to seek any type of protection in the U.S. once the whole Title 42 COVID pandemic has subsided. Okay, so Title 42 also applies to individual seeking asylum at ports of entry. So there are currently, this led to 15,000 people. They have been on waiting lists, and they're waiting for an opportunity to request asylum at ports of entry. The practice is known as metering, to be left there. So they are left in a limbo with no ability to seek asylum. Yeah, again, Title 42 is just left many people at the border, and they have been waiting just to be able to request the opportunity to seek asylum. Okay, so before the practice of expelling unaccompanied children was blocked in court, and then later formally ended by Biden, CBP used Title 42 to turn away and expel nearly 16,000 unaccompanied children. Despite provisions of the TVPRA, the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, which requires the government to protect children who arrive at the border without a parent or legal guardian. Okay, so as at last year, August 2021, the Border Patrol, they had carried out more than 1.1 million expulsions. Okay, so more than 60% of the encounters at the U.S.-Mexico border has led to expulsions. That's a pretty high number. Okay, now what have public health experts said about Title 42? According to them, they're saying that, look, the fundamental problem with the Title 42 expulsions is that they're just targeted at a small number of people who are seeking asylum. Meanwhile, people are coming in all the time through the border. So it looks like it's just targeting asylum seekers and targeting their ability to seek protection in the US. Okay. In fact, despite the existence of limitations at port of entry on non-essential travel, there are hundreds of thousands of people crossing daily from Mexico into the US. 11 million people in June 2021 alone. Okay. And the health people are saying that even the Title 42 expulsions alone could cause or could pose more public health threats because people are together and then for days to weeks before they are transported for expulsion, and this increases contact and the ability to transmit or to um, pass on the COVID virus. So now let's talk about how has Title 42 affected asylum seekers. So Title 42 has led to the mass expulsion of thousands of asylum seekers. Apparently, over 130,000 families and children have been expelled since the restriction went into place. Okay. Yes, let's go through here. Let me see. Okay, so here's what DHS's Alejandro Mayorkas is saying. So the Biden administration is pretty much saying that asylum seekers, they're not saying don't come. They're just saying wait until the new administration can restore humanitarian processing capacity at the border. So they are claiming that the system was destroyed under former President Trump, and they didn't have the capacity to, be able to process all these asylum seekers. So they're just saying that we're not saying don't come. We're saying don't come now because we will be able to deliver a safe and orderly process to them as quickly as possible. They want to pretty much be able to process them well once they lift the Title 42 rule. Yeah, so yeah, families once they're expelled back to Mexico, they are targeted by criminal cartels for violence, extortion. Um, okay, now let's talk about how has Title 42 affected border crossing. So Title 42 has had the counterproductive effect of it significantly increased the number of arrests at the border because those who are expelled to Mexico, they try again and again and again and again and again. So it's giving the CBP a lot of work, and in terms of even reducing the contact, it's increasing the contact because there are more and more and more people gathering at the borders, and so its counterproductive effect. Okay, I believe we've rushed through this document. This document is by the American Immigration Council. Very comprehensive document. That's what we used to do an overview of Title 42. So by May 23rd, 2022, this is going to be lifted, Title 42. Now let me remove this, and then let's look at something here. Let me take this off. We're going to look at um the U.S. Code. Let me share the screen here, and we're going to read what the codification of um, the right to seek asylum in the U.S. Let me see, 8 U.S. Code 1158, Section 1158. Okay, so here's what the law says. It says that any alien who is physically present in the United States or who arrives in the United States, whether or not at a designated port of arrival, and including an alien who is brought to the United States after having been interdicted in international United States water, irrespective of such alien status, may apply for asylum in accordance with this section. So that's the ability, the authority to apply for asylum. Now let's look at the U.S. Constitution the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. I'll have to take this off, and then we take a look at that. Okay. We're just going to look at a very small portion of the Fifth Amendment. It says that no person shall be pretty much deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Okay. So once you're in the US, these rules they apply to you and you're entitled to benefit from them. Now let's look at something that Alejandra Mayorkas shared, I believe last month. Yes. Oh, it was just this month, April 1st. Okay. So according to Alejandra Mayorkas, he's saying that they have put in place. So Alejandra Mayorkas is the Secretary of the Homeland Security. Okay. So we have put in place a comprehensive whole of government strategy to manage any potential increase in the number of migrants encountered at our border. We are increasing our capacity to process new arrivals, evaluate asylum requests, and quickly remove those who do not qualify for protection. We will increase personnel and resources as needed and have already redeployed more than 600 law enforcement officers to the border. We are referring smugglers and certain border crossers for criminal prosecution. Over the next 2 months, we are putting in place additional appropriate COVID-19 protocols, including ramping up our vaccination program. Okay. So that's the forward-looking statement. That's what they're going to be doing. That's what we can anticipate moving forward. And it's here. It says that okay, so that effective May 23rd, 2022, CDC will terminate its Title 42 public health order. Okay, and yes, as we've already stated, since March 2020, CDC has required the expulsion of unauthorized single adult and family units arriving at the land borders in order to protect against the spread of COVID-19. Okay, friends. So I hope that you've learned all about Title 42. I hope this video was helpful. Hopefully, all the questions we had about Title 42 have been clarified through this video. My name is again Attorney AK, founding attorney at AK Poku Law. If you need our help, please call us 802-7800-564. If you have questions, drop them in the comment box and hopefully we'll read them. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye. And thank you for watching. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Okay, thanks. Bye.